record. It's great to stay grounded when things get tough, but really it's so much more than that. I've just been seeing so much lately around how challenging times of change, times of emotional challenge, times of external challenge, things that feel hard for us are not just things we need to kind of cope with or that we can cope with or we can stay grounded through them. We can do all those things, but these challenges are actually things that come up for us to propel us forward, to help us grow and be even happier and have more peace of mind than we had before. And I think that is very, it can sound like a very nice idea. It sounds like, oh, that'd be great if that were true. But it obviously for all of us, it doesn't necessarily feel that way in the midst of it. It feels like we're just gritting our teeth and just hanging on for dear life and hoping we can get through this stuff. So we'll for sure look at getting through it. But I really want to point to some huge ideas that, again, really flip this on its head, because think about that for a minute. If it were true that every challenge, every challenging time, every bit of emotional discomfort and pain that we go through is not just something that we get to survive, but it is for us to help us feel more powerful and less attached to the things of life and to see our health and resilience more and more, are the way that we think about change and challenging times would be completely different. Completely. And I absolutely know for sure that is possible for all of us. So when I talk here in this class about challenging times, it's anything and everything. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, and there has been for the last few years, especially. And I hear about that, and we all feel the effects of that when there's a war going on in our world, and there's political uncertainty, and there's pandemics, and there's, just really emotional issues that are very emotional for us. And there's disagreements. Like, we feel that. We feel the effects of that, even when we're somewhere somewhat buffered from that, even when we're just living our life and we're not right in the middle of it. I think we all take that on in a sense, and we feel the effects of that. But it's not just big global, environmental, international kind of things like that. It's anything. It's any kind of challenge, any kind of change for us. It's all the same in the end of the day. And the things that we can really come to see that help us thrive during these times, not just survive, but thrive during these times, are the same no matter what the challenge is or what's going on. So really, I want to look a little bit at and have us look together, and I'll save some time at the end for questions and conversation around this. But really looking at how we can be more deeply and meaningfully connected to what never changes, because there's always a lot of change happening in the world. There always has been, and there always will be. And in our personal worlds, there always has been, and there always will be. Yes, we go through periods of time that are relatively easy. Things go well for us. That's awesome. But we are going to have challenge in life. We are going to have loss. We are going to be up against things that feel scary. And I think what hurts us more than anything is our fear of that someday, not even when it's happening. And I know you've all experienced this. When stuff is happening, we get through it. And then we look back and say, wow, I don't know how that happened, but I got through that. But more than anything, it's our anticipation of it. It's all the clenching and tightening and the ways that we try to make our life a certain way so that bad stuff doesn't happen to us or scary stuff doesn't happen to us. And that's what I think truly robs us of peace of mind and living a big life, and with freedom. As we're doing all this to try to keep it all intact and protect and keep it all nice and small and tight and safe. And that's never, ever going to work. And again, we don't have to do that, because when we're open to anything that comes our way, not only open to it, but even inviting of it, because we know that it actually helps us, it propels us forward in life, then there's just nothing to try to prevent and rearrange. And it's so much easier that way. So I have some slides I'm going to show. I'm going to try to do things that way. And again, I'll just ask you, if you have questions, make a little note of them. You can put them in the chat, but I won't really look until I get through some of these slides, and then we'll have some time at the end for anything that you guys want to talk about. Okay, so so this is the only slide that gives a lot of the bad news, but I really just want to put it out there. I don't think this is a shock to anyone. I don't think any of this is surprising to anyone. But I just want to share again, like why this is so needed right now. So, and I did a webinar on this, a free class on this in August, and shared some of this information about just the mental health predicament that we're in right now. It's really twofold. It's one that people are suffering and struggling more than ever. And it's that they are not getting the support, and the support is not out there the way that it has been perhaps in the past. So right now, my stats are for America, but I think it's comparable in other places. 24% of Americans are taking a medication, a prescription for a mental health issue. And anxiety and depression are up 25% since 2020. Addiction's up 30%. So again, I know we've all probably heard this. This isn't super shocking. But again, the other side of that is this sort of double whammy, that our ability to deal with these issues is really getting so much worse. So there's a 6-month plus wait in many places for therapy, for treatment. Not necessarily for prescription meds. You can get those pretty easily. But if you want to talk with someone, have a relationship with someone who can help you, a doctor or a traditional therapist who can help you through your issues, it's a long, long wait right now. And the thing that gets me more than anything is this last bullet here, that 57% of Americans with a mental health issue are being treated solely by medication. So people who are struggling with various forms of anxiety and depression and other things. Again, what I want to share here and what I really want you to come away from this seeing is that those issues are amazing for us. They are gifts. It is a gift when you find yourself not able to get out of bed. It is a gift when you are feeling anxious and unable to sleep and have OCD tendencies coming up and all of that. When your addiction is ramping up, that is there to get your attention, to point you towards something that ultimately is going to be way bigger freedom than you've ever had before. But if we only see that as a problem, and this is not your fault, it's not anyone's fault, this is how we've been kind of conditioned to see it. It just looks like a problem. We run to a doctor, we get a prescription, we just try to medicate it away. And 57% of people are not even having conversations about it, not even having that opportunity to see it in a different way. And you know, this isn't about medication or not. I'm all for people doing anything that they need to do to get through things. But when we only medicate, in a sense, what we're doing, I mean, really, in a very literal sense, what we're doing is we're getting this feedback from life, and we're just pushing it down and not even getting a chance to see it differently or talk about it. So why is this so bad? Why are these stats so much worse, especially in the last 3 years? You know, change and uncertainty are really, really tough for human minds. Now, I say it that way on purpose. They're very, very tough for a mind, for a human being with a brain. Change and uncertainty are tough. Change in itself, uncertainty in itself, not tough. Life is change. Nature has no problem. The rest of nature, and we are nature. We are not separate. And I'll talk about this a lot in a few minutes. We are not separate from the whole of nature. We are not separate from anything. We are not separate from the whole of life. Life without a brain, like the life out there without a brain and a mind that is designed for survival and storytelling and certainty and predictability, for all of that part of nature, change just happens. Like change just is life. Life is change, and change is life. It's effortless. It's natural. There's no problem with it. It's only for those of us with a mind and a brain that have a hard time with this. And, you know, I'm sure if you've heard me talk before or read any of my books, this part is pretty familiar and pretty clear, that our mind is is just trying to keep us physically alive. It is just out for our protection, and it is doing its job so well. There's absolutely no problem with a brain or a mind whatsoever. It is doing its job incredibly well. It's just trying to tell us what's what. It wants to tell us who we are in the scheme of things. It's trying to keep this identity of you alive. It wants you to know that you're a separate you, and here are some things about you, and here's what's likely to happen for people like you, and here's what could go wrong. Those are all the things that a brain has evolved to do to keep this physical organism alive. So there's no problem at all with the fact that our brains have a very strong negativity bias, or that they worry all the time, or that they make up stories, which they do constantly. They make things up just to give us a sense of security and knowing and certainty. All of that has this beautiful function, not a problem in the world with it. We just need to understand it. We just need to see that that's what's happening. And when we as humans really start to see, oh, this is just my brain doing what it's meant to do, and it is not me. I don't have a problem with change. I don't have a problem with uncertainty. Only my mind does. That really, really, really starts to flip things. It really starts to place our identity, in a sense, somewhere else. Our identity is as life itself, rather than as the stories that our mind is constantly spinning about who it thinks we are and what might go wrong, and all of that kind of stuff. So we have no issue with change, only a mind does. And it's always going to be hard. It's always going to be hard when we're really identified with thought. If you feel like life is happening to you, like you are separate from life is happening to you, your job is happening to you, world events are happening to you, of course that's hard. It's an artificial separation. There's a you, and then there's stuff that happens to you. That cannot be easy. It has to be hard. Even when things are going well, even when life is going your way and it's happening to you, it's happening to you. It's going well, and it could change at any moment. It's not comfortable. It's not freedom. It's not peace. It's like just being on the roller coaster, and you're either up or you're down, but you're up or you're down, and the next one's coming pretty soon. As we start to see that we are life, we are not separate from life, we are life, things get infinitely easier. So I want to start to look at that a little bit, and keep in mind as I share, I know many of you have heard me talk about these things many times, and probably many of you haven't. And it just kind of see if you can get a feel for what's being shared here. Just see how it feels for you. See if it feels expansive and open, or if it doesn't, or if you notice your mind kind of trying to wrestle with it a little bit. All of that's fine, but just kind of sense how that goes. So I'm calling the next few slides, and really as I start to unpack this, what change coaches know, but it's not just what change coaches know. I think given the mental health predicament that we're in, things are really, really poised right now for a new model. Like, we need a new model. People are not getting support. We know that considering things, mental illnesses and medicating everything is not working for people. So I'm just super passionate about this new paradigm that's being ushered in. And it's more of a model where coaches and people like you and me and anyone who gets a feel for this themselves and starts to live more from this place, we're just sharing with the people around us. And that might not feel like it's enough, but it's totally enough. It's all that's needed. In fact, if all of us start to live 1% more this way, 5% more this way, people around us feel that. And our sharing has ripples that we can't even imagine. And the days of needing letters after your name and credentials and all of that truly are starting to fall by the wayside, no question, because those establishments are not working well, and it's no surprise to anyone. So that's part of why I'm kind of framing a lot of this in terms of, what change coaches can see, but it's what all of us can see. It's what anyone who comes through the Little School of Big Change starts to see. It's what we're all doing here together. We know that we are life, and life is constantly changing. So again, only a mind wants to predict and control that. And there's something really, really huge in feeling into this oneness that is all of this. So of course, we all feel like we're separate individuals. We have that experience. That is how a brain presents things to us. A brain loves to separate and label and name and judge and give meaning to things. And so everything is separate. It's in relation to other things. It's before and after. It's you and me. It's someday, never. It's predicting the future, replaying the past. All of that is amazing that we can have that experience, but that is just what a brain does. As far as we know, animals and trees, and maybe animals a little bit, but not to the extent humans, I don't think. But other parts of nature don't have that experience because they don't have a brain that works quite that way. And this is really important to see. Like, we do have a mind and a brain that works this way, but it's not the full story. And I think the more we start to get onto that, everything gets to kind of shift a little bit. We get to really actually feel, not just in this nice spiritual, hypothetical sort of way, but actually feel and live in the experience of oneness with everything. That is possible. That is more than possible. It's our nature. It's what wants to happen. It's what is wanting to happen all the time. The only reason we're living in this me and you and good and bad and before and after world is out of habit, is because our mind started talking and separating and labeling and judging as it's evolved to do. And we get identified with that. But every one of us know, no matter how identified with that we all are, we've had moments where that is kind of quiet. We've had moments where we don't see the separation and the boundaries and all of that quite so crisply. We know that stuff can fall away. We have moments of just being deeply touched and feeling deeply connected with other people or nature or whatever that aren't really explainable, where all those boundaries seem to go away. And that's not just for, a beautiful day when you're walking on the beach. Like you can really, truly live more this way. I just talked with someone from my podcast a few weeks ago, and he said, I forget how he said it, but he said something like, he was talking about recovering from alcoholism. And he was talking about how his recovery was about feeling into something bigger and deeper. And he said, like, what else is there in life? Like, why would you even want to live if you only think that you are what your mind is talking about all the time? In the absence of some bigger, deeper connection to something bigger, it's hard. It's just hard. And I, the way he said it was with such conviction. It was a very extreme statement, but it really kind of, really kind of reminded me, like, man, that it just makes everything easier. And I think that as smart thinking adults, we start to just get so caught up in what our mind is talking about and these realities that are created by thought that we just say, oh yeah, well, this is just how it's going to be. This is just how I live. And those other nice little moments of connection, they just happen every once in a while when I'm lucky. And I really, really want us to just be open to the fact that it doesn't have to be that way either, that can flip, that can reverse. It can be more that we live predominantly as in this sense of oneness, deeply connected to something else, we navigate more by a deeper feeling. And that, yes, our mind will fear and worry and predict and do all the things minds do, but that starts to come up and feel just more kind of like background noise. Like, oh yeah, there's my mind again. I've experienced that shift. I still for sure get caught up in thought, for sure. But there is no question that the starting point, in a sense, the kind of natural resting point has massively shifted from where it was 15, 20 years ago. And I see that for people all the time. So I just want to share that because I honestly, I don't want this to just be like, oh, those are nice spiritual ideas. This is super practical, or we wouldn't be talking about it. And it's especially, it comes to life, and it's especially practical. And like we have this opportunity now to really see this when we're in some kind of challenge or when we're facing some kind of tough time. So when it looks like life is happening to us, that's a great little indication, that our mind is up here saying, I'm a me, all these things need to go my way so I can be okay. And when they aren't, then we're not. And that's just how it goes when we're really identified with thought. And when we aren't so identified with thought, all kinds of things still happen in life. There's still inflation and war and pandemics and all kinds of things. And we feel that, we experience it, but it's just different. It doesn't threaten us because it doesn't look like us anymore. We don't identify as a person with life happening to them in quite the same way. So we don't feel so threatened and thrown by these things that happen. So I know we saw this a lot, and I loved talking about this, especially in like early 2020, that life is inherently uncertain, and it always has been, always. And that is fun. When we were children, certainty is boring to a kid. A kid does not want to know what's happening next. Like, it's just boring. It's only when we get very identified with our mind, with, again, before and after and me and what I need to be okay, when we start living in that conceptual world, uncertainty is terrifying. But it's only in those concepts that uncertainty is terrifying. And this isn't I don't mean to make it sound like it's a kid versus adult thing. I mean, for all of us, in any moment, when our mind is not spinning on here's me and here's how I'm doing in life and here's what's supposed to happen and here were my plans and they got canceled, when all of that isn't happening, there is an intimacy with what is. There is just a closeness, a being in this right here before all the concepts that is 100% safe. It is the safest place we can be. And it's peaceful and it's exciting and there's no problem at all in that space. It's only when a mind that needs to predict and figure things out comes in that uncertainty becomes a problem in any way at all. So we are designed for this immediacy. We are designed to live in this moment here, and we thrive here, and it is safe here. But I wrote about this in just a thought where, we're born living in just in now and this, and everything is just fresh and new, and our brain is not developed yet to live in the conceptual world. And then it does. And then it starts to. And then some scary things happen. And because our brain is all about our survival and our protection, if something feels like it threatens you, you hear your parents fighting, someone bullies you, you get lost for a little bit and you're scared, your mind jumps in and says, I'll help. Here's what we'll do. You'll never do that again. Then we'll prevent all emotional pain. So it's like our brain is doing its job perfectly to keep this physical organism alive and to help it survive. But our mind and our brain, same thing in the way I talk about it, starts to not only worry about the physical, but starts to try to help all of our emotional needs. Like, oh, you don't like that feeling? Don't worry. We'll never have to feel that again. We just won't talk to those people, or we'll just do this, or you'll just be perfect. And that'll prevent any kind of rejection. And our mind comes up with these ideas, not just to keep us physically alive, but to keep us emotionally in some place. And that's where it really all goes off the rails. We get so identified with that. And as we all know, that's never, ever going to happen. It starts to give us this experience that life is scary and that our emotions are scary and that things that happen to us are scary and dangerous. And they're not. And we knew this as children, and we know it now when all the thinking settles down. So we are getting nonstop feedback about whether we're living in that immediacy of life versus in our concepts about life, whether we're here in this moment or our mind is off fearing and predicting and making things up, which is what it does. Our discomfort of any sort, any kind of suffering, any kind of tension, any kind of fear, any kind of insecurity, all of that is amazing. These feelings, again, the ones that when they get too bad by our mind's judgment, we run off to try to medicate them away. We distract them away. We will do anything. Our mind will do anything to not have us feel discomfort. That discomfort that's being pushed away and thought to be the problem is the absolute best thing there is. It is our ticket to freedom. It is literally our ticket to freedom, because when we feel this discomfort of any type, again, it is showing us we are listening to our mind and we've forgotten for a minute our bigger connection. We are just in a machine. We're in a computer game that's talking about now, later, what might happen, what did happen, that has no relevance to actual life. What did happen at any point in any of our lives has nothing to do with the intimacy and immediacy of this moment. And that's not at all to discount anything we've been through. We've all been through super hard things. We have been through things that live on in our body and live on in our psychology. But that does not mean that those things have anything to do with life, the like freshness of life as it's showing up right now. It just means that our mind might be rehashing something that happened when we were 20. It might be talking, and it does all the time. Psychology is incredibly habitual. The stuff, it leaves a mark in the sense that it leaves a mark on the psychology, that our psychology, our mind, our machinery will go back and rehash these things and try to protect us from them and do all of that stuff. But again, we aren't locked into that. Starting to see that, and we do that by noticing what discomfort is showing us, noticing what feeling stuck in old memories or traumatic responses or anxiety or depression or any of that. Those things are just showing us, oh, there's an old psychological pattern playing here that's taking you away from the safety and the beauty and the absolute limitless possibilities of here, right now, this moment. So thank God we feel that stuff. We have to feel that stuff, or else we would just constantly live in these tiny little lives thinking that's the whole of it. We would think this is just reality. This is just me. I'm just messed up. I have trauma. I have this, I have that. That's just how I am. But when we can start to see the feeling of that for what it is, it becomes our way through that. I've been so on this topic lately, and I think I'm going to do a workshop on it in January, just like a little free 3-part thing to really go into this more. But people in my little school big change community and my coaches and others know I'm probably driving them crazy talking about this. But feeling that discomfort, not just feeling it, but having a relationship with that discomfort where we get to lean into it. We get to see it as a gift. We want it. And I know that sounds crazy, but again, think about this. Challenges, like when the pandemic hit and everybody's calendars cleared for at least 3-4 months, and everyone was like, what the heck is going on? And what do I do with myself? Didn't it show us all very, very clearly what we were attached to, what we thought we needed to be okay, where our identities lied? I mean, it showed you so clearly where your identity was. It showed you who you thought you were and what you thought you did in the world and how important all of that looked and what it all meant. There was so much that came to light. Now, no one wants to relive that, but the fact of life is we're going to relive it in various ways, hopefully not in that form, but in all kinds of forms forever. Again, in global ways, in personal ways, like we are constantly up against change and challenge. And they reveal this stuff to us. They show us what we think we need and who we think we are. And what we think we need and who we think we are is not true. It's what a mind has made up. It is incredibly limiting. By definition, it's incredibly limiting. It's just an invention. It's just a thought. It's a creation. So feeling this and really even just feeling the discomfort of some emotions when they show up in our everyday life, leaning into that energy, looking at like, can I just feel this? Where is it physically? How is it showing up? Where do I feel it? What is my mind talking about? I recently had a incident. I shared this with our community, but it was a long story short. There was a misunderstanding, and someone that I've known for a long time got very angry with me, and it threw when that happens. I mean, my whole body was just in a sort of shock. My whole body, like I just felt it in my body for a good day, if not longer. My mind was going to memories and shame, and then getting mad at him, and then trying to defend myself, and then beating myself up and thinking, no, this is really all your fault. That whole roller coaster of feeling and sensation and energy and stories and memories, when we are not afraid of that, you don't have to love it. But when we are like, I'm curious about this, what is this crazy, wacky creation of energy happening right now? When we can see it in that way, and we can be curious, and we can sit with it and breathe through it and notice what's there, it changes in incredible ways. And I hate to say that, because this is not about a strategy for it to change, but it shows you things. Just being in the waves of energy that day and a half or so that this really affected me when this happened a few weeks ago. I mean, it felt horrible. I felt like I was going to throw up sometimes. It felt like shame. It felt like all the worst things that I don't want to be true about myself. But then being able to kind of say, okay, I know this is a psychological creation. I know this is what happens. Bring it on. I want to feel this. I'm not going to go run and eat something or drink something or buy something. I'm going to be in this energy and see what it's wanting me to see what it wants to show me. It sounds really cheesy. And again, I'm not trying to overly like glamorize this, because it did suck bad for good portions of that time. But I also felt so like powerful and courageous and not running. Not running, like, okay, I can handle this. I want to see what it is. And I don't think there are many times that we get those opportunities. I mean, we get those opportunities all the time in life, but I don't think we take them, because again, it's not your fault. We've been so told that emotions are bad and bad feelings are bad feelings, and we shouldn't be feeling them. And if they get too bad, then you need to go get on medication. And it's so much misunderstanding. And we just want to start to flip that model, because think about it. If you can have these things happen in this big emotion, and you're willing to just swim in it for a little bit, and then you watch it dissolve and transform in your body and in front of your eyes, like you see it and feel it differently, you're not going to sit around in life afraid of how bad inflation might get, or the next pandemic, or what might happen if so-and-so is president. Like, your mind might go there for sure, but you just have a different relationship with all of life. It's like this fearlessness that takes over. And it's back to what we talked about in the very beginning, that we are this. That same energy that was showing up, making me feel like I wanted to puke and bringing all this shame about. And then an hour later, it felt totally different. Like, that is who and what we are, is this one energy. So when there's not all the chopping it up and calling it names and pushing some away and wanting others, it's just so much easier, so much easier. So I don't know how this is sounding. I'm excited to hear if anyone wants to share. I know these things can feel sort of cliche like, and just sort of like spiritual ideas. Um, but I really just want us all to just know more and more, myself included, that that is our nature, that it is very practical. It is very possible. Like we can live more and more connected. And I think the way in is by knowing that we are one with everything, and that allows us to feel more of what's coming our way, not to dismiss and push things away and have to have our way, but to let these challenges show us where there's attachment, show us where there's fear, and then feel right into that attachment and fear. And when we do, it dissolves, it changes, and we see things that we couldn't have seen before. So the whole thing about hindsight is so interesting. I was thinking about this just with, like, in my lifetime anyway, there's been COVID, there was the big economic downturn of 2008, 9, there was, there have been wars, there have been things that where everyone understandably kind of freaks out, where there's a ton of uncertainty, where there's a ton of hard things happening. We've all had a lot of these things personally. And what happens when we're identified with thought? We hunker down, we try to just, white knuckle through it. We think, this is horrible. I can't wait to get back to normal. I don't want this to be happening. I sure hope it doesn't hit me too hard. All of this is so natural. We worry, we predict how it's going to go, and then we get through it. And even if you don't get through it, yes, some people didn't get through the pandemic. Some people did not get through wars. Yes. Worrying and white knuckling and thinking, oh no, I hope it doesn't happen to me, certainly didn't help them. It's not helping us. It's not doing anything. Either way, we get through it. Honestly, like, we are life. It keeps on moving. Either way, we're getting through everything, dead or alive, in this form or not. We are getting through everything. Life does not stop for us. The more we can start to feel that connection with all of that and lean into what's showing up, I think that's where we get to be on the other side of this. And now in our hindsight, we can look back and say, oh my gosh, why was I so worried? And we look back at some of these times and we see how much, like, how many opportunities there were. There were people who not only weren't all that negatively impacted by things, but who thrived during these times. We all know those stories. There are many, many people who, when things are the toughest, when the majority of the world is scared to death and they're hiding and keeping life small and hunkering down, other people are out taking full advantage of what's available and just, living their life the best they can. And again, on a personal level, using these challenges, seeing these challenges, like, wow, I can feel this too. I can feel this too. We come out stronger from this stuff. And that's so cliche, but it really truly is the case when we have a sense of this. So there were many people I work with now who are still kind of waking up from a 2020 hangover, who now their habits got out of control, depression, anxiety spiraled out of control, and they're trying to kind of get back on track. And there are lots of people right now for whom that is not the case, who, yes, had some uncertainty, had some fear. It is not about not being human and not feeling that stuff. But with this deeper connection, there just wasn't the falling into it. There was more of a recognition. There is more of a recognition by knowing how we feel, that when our mind is off predicting, saying, oh, bad things are going to happen, and this is not a time to be happy, and just, keep your life small and safe, you start to recognize that stuff. Rather than that just being the predominant voice in your head, you really start to recognize that more and see it for what it is more. So I feel like in times like, I don't even know if it's times like this. I know it is for some people, in times when there is a lot of uncertainty, and again, in outside kind of ways, or just even personal ways, there is nothing better than we can do, or that we can look toward or invest our time and effort into, than seeing this. And there are so many ways to see this, and you really can only benefit. So of course, I'm sharing two that are near and dear to my heart. The Little School of Big Change, which is a course that walks us through what I just tried to share in 41 minutes, like spend 6 weeks really exploring this and seeing, oh yeah, it sounds nice. I'm all one with life, but you get hit with that over and over for 6 weeks and you come away knowing it in a different way. And even that is just the beginning, but it's a solid beginning. It's a great beginning. But there are many ways to do this. There are podcasts, books, anything. I just really want to encourage you to look in this direction and to really get a deeper grounding in this, because I can't imagine anything more important, especially now, especially right now, or when things are hard. The other way is the change coach training, which I'm training a new batch of coaches starting in January. And again, for that, it's an incredible immersion into this. You can't even begin to think about sharing this with someone else unless you've come to see it more and more and more yourself and live it yourself, not just see it and know it, but live it yourself. That's how we coach. That's how the whole philosophy behind how change coaches support people is they get grounded in this first. Their life gets better. Then everything they share comes from that place. It's natural. There are some skills to coaching, but there are not many. It's really not hard. It's a conversation, but it's a conversation that comes from your grounding. And as you push yourself to be able to share this with others, you have to see it more deeply yourself. And to that too, again, I'm just super passionate about the day when this change is going to be the norm, when people who are struggling with a habit or anxiety or depression, they go to see what that is here to show them, rather than run to a doctor to numb it away, or on their own run to a habit or an addiction to numb it away. There is no way that is going to be going on for too much longer in this world. I just know that for sure. And this paradigm shift where coaches and people, everyday people like you and me, I mean, we don't have to have a ton of special skills or knowledge or training. We've just seen something ourselves. We're sharing it, and we start with our friends and our family and ourselves. And it just trickles out. And might sound a little Pollyanna, but I know it's true, and I know it's coming, and it's already happening. So both of those are just great opportunities. And again, there's so many, but I really hope that something in this, is just felt a little grounding, has felt like, oh, things are not as they appear. I think that's the biggest, most helpful thing we can see, is that especially when we're scared, especially when we're wanting to keep our life small and not go out and not spend money and not do anything and just keep it all right here just in case, that feeling is there to show you where you are attached, where your mind is attached to what you need to be safe. And your mind is wrong. Your mind does not know what you need to be safe. It especially does not know what you need to be emotionally safe, because you are emotionally safe. Emotions are safe. We've only been told that they aren't. So as we start to lean into all of this more and more, life opens up in really huge, really, really amazing ways. And I just wanted to share this at the end. And then I just want to open it up to any questions or thoughts or anything that anyone wants to share or ask. Because I think, I don't know, I find this too, I've been studying this for my entire adult life. I've been teaching it for most of my adult life. And I still notice all the time when a mind gets busy and there's this fear-based, me-centered, have to protect myself way of seeing things, these are the things that happen. We say to ourselves, oh, I can just do it on my own. I'll figure it out. I'm fine. I can just cope on my own. There's this real walling in and wanting to just, not look out and not get support. And it's crazy, and it's common. It's what we all go through. I think we put these walls up and we're just going to do it ourselves, but we don't have to do that. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and, invest in a coach for a year or anything like that, but we can talk to each other. We can listen to podcasts, we can just do little things, and it opens up so much. Just a different mindset opens up so much. So that fear-based way, I can do it on my own. We get really scared sometimes when things are uncertain and we think we can't invest, especially in ourselves, when this is the most important time. What else is stable to invest in? What else do you want to invest in? Honestly, everything's up, feels like it's up in flames and uncertain in the world. And we feel like we can't count on ourselves. Well, that sucks. This is the time when we need to invest in ourselves more than ever, where, our minds get very myopic and everything. And I know this myself too. Everything looks like you can just see the potential failure in it. Like, oh, that could be a waste of money. That could be a waste of time. That could be a waste of energy. And we get blind to the payoff. We just can't see the payoff because our mind is not evolved to see a payoff. Our brain has only evolved to show us what might go wrong. So I think if you're feeling that way ever in life, right, it's just great. Again, it's another way. Those are all ways to show us, oh, I'm very identified with this mind. And then as we just get more grounded in things, even when life feels chaotic and hard things are happening for us, it just starts to flip. It starts to feel like, yeah, there's fear here. There's uncertainty here, but I know I am the best and first person to invest in. I can see that the potential payoffs, or even if I can't see them, I know they're there. There's so many payoffs. There's so many things that are possible that just because they're hidden from our view doesn't mean they don't exist. They're only hidden from our view because our mind doesn't want to go there. So it starts to flip everything, like our desire and the things that call to us are what move us forward, rather than our mind telling us what's the safest bet or what we should be doing right now. And I think, again, none of this is new to any of you here, I'm sure, but I feel this is always good reminders for me too. Like, I feel like it's so helpful to just see, oh yeah, this is how the scared mind talks. This is how the grounded truth sounds. Okay, so let me go to you guys, sorry, and just see any questions, anything you want to share, anything at all. We can see what comes up. Feel free to just raise your hand here, and then I can call on you. And thanks for listening to this. It was a bit of a, there's so much in this that I really just want to share. And especially, I just want people to know that this is, I don't want to use the word doable, and I don't want to keep using the word practical, but it is like our nature, because I know that minds can say, oh yeah, fine, that's okay. Maybe later, maybe when I have more time, I'll feel happy and peaceful. Maybe that's easy for her. Like all the stuff, all minds are the exact same. They all say the exact same stuff. But it really, there can be a shift where we live more from this groundedness, and we still have all the same challenges, but those challenges can truly look different and really be like, oh, what's this one going to show me? And it doesn't have to feel like that all the time. Obviously, it really doesn't. Of course, you could be like, oh, this sucks. I wish this hadn't happened. And then maybe it's a day later or a week later, an hour later, where you're like, maybe there's something in this for me. That's how I've felt it go, where there can still be that initial resistance. I don't like this. This isn't what I ordered. But then at some point, you can't stay in that tension and feel defeated and like a victim of life for so long anymore. Something in that just starts to wake you up to, oh, I bet there's something in this. And then just our curiosity and our leaning into the emotion is what kind of pulls us through. Bree.
Hey there.
Hi, Bree.
Hey, here I am in San Francisco. I just want to thank you. You can't hear this stuff. I can't hear this stuff enough. And as Amy knows, and others, some others, I've had a awareness practice, I call it, with a Buddhist approach for like 30 years. That's, for me, the keystone for my life. And when I found Amy in the school, it so mirrors what my particular path has been, and how I've been helped beyond description of, going through this life on this planet. And I just wanted to affirm, thank you, Amy. I honestly, it so rings true what you're saying. And I totally agree. We are definitely not only in need of a huge shift and of so much more in the whole mental health crisis going on here in this country and other places. The timing, it's here. And I think for any of us who really know that and see it, it's just really obvious. The opening is there. The path is open. The door is open. And this a particular approach and making something so affordable and I think actually understandable to people. Yeah. So again, I just appreciate you, the school, and I'm just totally affirming all of it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Bree. I love that. Like there's really it's so hard to describe just the benefit of feeling this deeper connection and going through life that way. Like words can't really do it, but I feel like as we feel that more and more, it just becomes more obvious that nothing else is all that important. And that doesn't mean, we don't still go for things and do things. It becomes a lot more fun to chase after things in life for fun that we want and to live full out. But it's like that deeper sense of I'm okay no matter what comes my way. I think as we all just have a little taste of that, it becomes super obvious that there's nothing that we want more than that.
If I could just add one more thing in terms of what you just said, because this is certainly my experience with practice and, as far as there's no words to describe it. True. Here's the deal. When you live it, people know it, they feel it. It can be very subtle. It can be very obvious. But people will sense it and people do respond and they start to change sometimes, even besides them, kind of regardless of themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're having a new experience in the exchange with the coach or me or you. Yeah. And so the more, yes, that we are living it, that we know this, that's to me, honestly, that's all that I need to be concerned about. I don't have to worry about building anything or create. My life is going to be the living proof, as other people have been to me over my life, of what is possible. And I think that is the beauty and the power of this particular school and what is possible.
Yes. Awesome. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Bree. Let's see. Oh, I love the comments in the chat. So Lisa says in the chat, I'll just speak to this a little bit. The pathway to being a coach and getting started is daunting, even when you have the knowledge. I think to a mind for sure, starting anything new is daunting. And that's the kind of thing and that's okay. Like can we just feel that? So yesterday I was on a call with in our community of certified coaches, and they're all talking about how every time they're sharing online and they're having new clients, these are like new coaches, and they're doing webinars and doing some of this stuff for the first time, they feel like they want to hurl. That was the word that we kept using. Like, I just want to hurl every time. And it became so funny, this call. It's like, can we just love the feeling of wanting to hurl? And even if you don't love it, so what? You don't love it, but can you just feel it? Can it just be there? And then you just do the thing anyway? And we all know it can. It takes nothing special to make that the case. We all know that we are okay with feeling, but it's like we've gotten so conditioned to, oh no, I want to hurl. I'm just going to not do it. And so again, I think anything in life, it's daunting to me to do anything new. It's daunting. That's just the human condition. But can that just be kind of part of it? Part of it is that our mind, and it's only because our mind loves to see the path and have some certainty. So it's going to feel a little daunting, but that doesn't mean anything about anything. It doesn't mean anything about how it's going to go or how good you're going to be or how much you'll like it or not like it or anything at all. And that's what I think is super interesting and important for us to see, is that we get a little attached to these opinions and the conversation in our head, but we don't realize how biased it is and how inaccurate it is. how would we know how things are going to go? Like, especially around becoming a coach and starting a business, it's not an overnight thing and it's not always an easy thing. But as we're sharing, and I think you guys can hear, it is incredibly needed and in demand. And there is absolutely nothing that prevents anyone from going out and doing that. Nothing except a thought that looks real and a feeling we don't want to feel. So if we can be okay with the feelings that are going to come up along the way, that removes the barrier. Then it's like, there's no question anyone can come to see this and share it, or anything you want to do in life. It's not just about becoming a coach, anything. If we're okay with feeling, then the obstacles are gone. Samantha.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that. My gosh. I mean, I just want to say to people who are thinking about maybe going through the coaching program, I did it. I did the 6-month certification program. And I love what Amy said about like what she covered in 41 minutes. Like that's just scratching the surface. But like, my God, the amount of information you just provided right then, and like imagine that over a 6-month period of interaction. And it's just like, it was so life-changing for me. And I love what Wendy Healy said, because Wendy's a fellow coach. And she said, she said that like, just the fact like how much she personally benefited from it, like, and how she continues to grow. And it's so true. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough, like that the personal impact you can have. And that part you said about the investment, like what better investment? I mean, it's so true. Even if you weren't to go on and become a coach, it's all about, it just so deepens the way that you see how life really works. And I listened to you, and it's like the first time I've listened to you again, I'm like, oh my God, it's just like gives me chills. So I just have to say that if anybody's interested, I can't speak highly enough about the experience working with Amy and meeting other people that are just also curious about this. So just wanted to say that. Thank you as always for everything.
Thank you. And thank you, Wendy. And I didn't ask them to be here. I'm feeling
No,
embarrassed, but
this is not paid, paid advertisement.
They're not getting anything for this. But thank you. I love you guys. I appreciate that so much. I love what so in the chat, Rebecca said she just finished the book and is trying to overcome an addiction. I think I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here, Rebecca, really. I mean, and you're just starting, it sounds like, on this, just the book, and join us in the Little School of Big Change that starts in February if that calls to you. But there's no deeper, kind of better way to see things to help yourself through this addiction than this. And I've just seen that so many times. Do all kinds of things. Be interested in anything that grabs your attention. That's wonderful. But hopefully just in this little talk, you can kind of get a sense for how, when we're not afraid to feel anything, when we see we are everything, it is not life happening to us, poor little weak me. We are all of it. We are all energy. It's all the same energy. And any cravings, urges, insecurity, pain that comes your way is you. It's just this, it's made of the same thing you're made of. You can feel into it. You can start to open and welcome that and be curious about it. There's no ground for an addiction to stand on. There is just no reason for a habit. It serves no purpose. Addiction serves no purpose as we really start to wake up to this. And again, I don't want to make that sound like it's necessarily an overnight thing, but it continues to unfold for people in amazing, amazing ways. So I'm really glad that you're looking in this direction for help with that. Wendy.
So she mentioned my name, so now here I come. I just want to say, yes, I love the coach training. And of course, I went through the school a couple of times myself and found help with that. I just love the training. And now, like, how it's helping me, I guess I'm on my own journey still, but I'm finding that people that I come in contact with, and people in my classes, I'm a fitness instructor also, but people in my classes, I see them so much deeper now. They're not just faces in my class. Each one is a soul now. And it doesn't matter anymore who I talk to or who I see during the day, but I can get that deep connection with people. and it's happening constantly and over every single day. So it's people that I would never have really talked to before, people that I wouldn't consider friends. Everybody is a friend now, and it's blowing my mind because that was never me before. And also, speaking on the daunting part of it, like I'm trying to grow a business, but at the same time, just kind of relaxed with it, and I'm letting it come to me as it comes to me. And now I've finally started going out and doing a video here and there, and I'm writing a little bit, and I got an Instagram. And so those little things, like when I at first thought, well, I got to do this, this, and this, I'm just relaxing and letting go and letting whatever feels right come to me and do. So it's not overnight, but I'm loving the journey of it.
Wow, that's awesome, Wendy. Thank you for sharing. And I love, like, again, we get this feel for when there isn't this precious Wendy who has these qualities and likes these people and likes these activities, as that starts to soften a bit, that's where it's like, hey, I don't know, I guess I'll do a video. or like you said, there's a connection there with everyone. It's like the boundaries and the rigidness of life start to melt a little bit. And that's
and
really
I'm
beautiful.
seeing people that are connected to me, like they're coming to me and they're being drawn to that. Just because it's in me, I think it's drawing other people, and all of a sudden, like, all the people are in my classes and they're all back, and this one's telling that one, and I'm seeing, people coming to me where I don't have to go out and actually find them anymore.
Yeah,
so, which is a
great.
good benefit.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So I'll take any more questions. I'm going to look in the chat and maybe speak to some of these as well. But anything that anyone wants to share, feel free. Yes, Jen says, I guess the hurling is a sign that we're really attached to some fearful thinking. And inroad into this grounding 100%. I mean, when you just feel like when you just feel that energy, and what we've been kind of conditioned to do is just go somewhere else, push it away, make it go away. Don't do that thing, right? Such a flip, such a massive flip in life to see, oh, this feeling, oh yeah, my little precious little identity is feeling threatened. I can't believe he thinks that about me in the case of my thing a couple of weeks ago, or I can't believe, I'm going to put a video out. What will people think? Or how does this make me look? That's what that feeling is showing us. It's just alerting us to the fact that our mind is it's really attached. And when you start to see that, it almost becomes funny. It almost becomes like, oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for this feeling. I'm constantly saying thank you for discomfort. And I never would have thought that would have been the case. Trust me. But like it's weird. It's a very odd habit to have, but this is my habit now. When I feel this stuff, it's like, thank you. And it doesn't mean it goes away instantly, but there's this instant, like, okay, I know there's something in this. And when you're saying thank you, you're just not that tense. When you're saying thank you, there's something that's opening up and that you're going to start to see from that. Deborah. No, you're still muted. Do you see your mute button? I can't do it on my end, unfortunately.
No, I think I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I am new to this. Okay. So and I got into this because of a habit that really should change. I mean, I want it to change. I want it to go away. I just I probably came into it thinking, oh, I'll take this. I'll go to, first of all, I read your book. Okay. Then I went to the little school, a big change just recently this fall. So I'm really new. And it's like, okay, I got into it because I wanted my habit to change. But now I'm seeing this whole different, viewpoint or paradigm. And, and I was a science teacher, and anytime that anything happens, there always has to be a revolution for a paradigm to shift. I mean, you can go back to Thomas Kuhn, and he was one of the ones I studied a long time ago. And so maybe I need a revelation or a revolution in my mind
Yeah.
to get this, how I want to get unstuck of the paradigm that I was stuck in. And I want to get unstuck because I really would. I mean, the habit I have is not good for me, for one thing. If it were, it would be fine. And I don't know how I got stuck in it. But anyways, yeah, my husband just walked in, but that's okay. He knows everything about me anyway. And he knows about the school a little bit that I'm doing it. So I'm just not, I don't know if it's just I'm not getting it quite. I mean, it seems like I understand being in science, we're all energy. I mean, everything, our whole body is really just a bunch of, cells that are made up of chemicals that are all energy, right?
Yeah.
So, and it seems that your brain's going to be the same way. It's all just energy, and it passes and it goes and it passes, but I'm still haven't the habit is still bothering me, and I can't get rid of. I shouldn't have to get rid of the habit. It should just pass through, but I'm still giving into it, I guess. That doesn't even make sense.
It does though. Like see if you can put the emphasis on for yourself on feeling anything. So maybe not just thoughts about your habit and urges. You can play with it there for sure. See if you can be with those and be curious about them and feel them and notice where you feel them in your body and kind of welcome them rather than pushing them away. Because that's what happens is we just instantly habitually resist this stuff. Yes. And you aren't doing that, Deborah. It's not like you're saying, oh no, here's an urge, here's a thought, go away. Like it's fast. It's automatic at some point because we've been so conditioned to fear feeling. So don't worry about that stuff quite yet, because that might be a little bigger, but like, just notice how you feel. Like even right now, is there some nervousness for speaking? Is there some excitement? Yes. Is it right? Like all of that in your day, when you get a little frustrated or you're in traffic, or even when you're happy or excited, just kind of swim in the feeling a little bit. Say, what does this feel like? Where's the energy right now? Is it more my stomach, my chest? Where's my mind going? If we kind of break it down in a sense, and I don't mean that in an analytical way, but kind of just lean into this, that starts to become the norm. And then it's no different when it's an urge for your habit. It's just that it feels different. You're used to thinking that's the big thing. Like you can handle traffic, but you can't handle that. But it's all the same. So as you're leaning in and getting used to this, it's going to start to expand.
Okay. So, I've got that. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
But now my question is, I am part of the graduate community. I have signed up to do that. But I don't know if doing coaching I've seen some in the chat that some people get into coaching not to coach other people, but to go deeper with themselves or learning this process for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that's a good choice, or should I wait, or that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of people do, because like I was saying earlier, it's a big immersion into this. To even think about how you would point someone else to this, you have to kind of keep deepening. But it's a personal thing for what feels kind of right and most helpful for you in the moment. And I'm happy to talk with you about it separately and kind of help you see that. But there's no right or wrong. You definitely don't have to wait. This is a big thing. I think I've heard this a lot over the years. People say, oh, well, I still have my habit, so I can't even think about supporting other people. Yeah. And I think that's just a false separation. It's like, you don't have to go out and support people through the habit you're actively in. I would not recommend that. But to train as a coach and to see this, you can start doing that now if you wanted to. So it doesn't take that off the table for you. And that doesn't mean that's the best choice either. So I think we should talk about it more so you can see what feels most helpful for you. But it could be an option.
I know that this summer, especially when I was up visiting my sister because we live like over 1,000 miles apart, and she's a really, really highly anxious person over everything and has a lot of fears, that I was actually teaching her, telling her about some of the stuff I was learning through reading
Yeah.
your book and listening to podcasts.
Yeah. That's
You know,
awesome.
so it's like, oh wow, you know.
Yeah.
So anyways, that
And
was
you see
interesting.
that stuff so much more deeply for yourself. We all do when we're sharing it. So for me in the last
True.
15 years, like nothing has helped me deepen nearly as much as coaching other people, you know, because it's
Yeah.
different. It's different than going to it, like just learning it, like somehow having to kind
Right.
of like getting to explain it to her and seeing it for her. It's just easier to see it for other people. So that helps
Yeah.
your grounding.
It was like, you know, I mean, I've heard this before, and I used to use this. I got sick and retired early from teaching, and it was quite traumatic. But I saw that, you know, the kids that really would, this is teenagers, higher level, and that really could learn something is when they taught it to elementary students.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see that happen.
Yeah.
So yes,
awesome.
it's the same with us. I think it
Yeah.
helps us as much as it does the person that you're talking to about this,
For sure.
this idea.
Yes, for
So
sure.
that was
Yeah.
my question, and
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you. And we'll talk, reach out to me, and then we can talk separately if you
Okay.
want.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you, Amy.
All right. Thanks, Deborah. I'm going to look to some of these questions in the chat, and I'll stay on until we answer all the questions. But again, if you guys have questions, you want to raise your hand, feel free. So Becky says, I'm wondering if someone who's decided to do the coach training could explain how they decided to do it and explain to a spouse why it's worth the investment. Oh, that's a tricky one. I don't know. I'll Wendy has her hand up. Wendy, go ahead.
So when I first, I knew I had to do the training. I just was being called to do the training. And of course, I'm like, well, how am I going to pay for this? How will I do this? And so we all know, well, maybe you don't if you haven't been in it long enough, but wisdom comes through. And when your mind quiets down and stops asking how and how and how, it quieted down. And I went, oh, equity line of credit. And that's how I did it. And I'm actually on the equity line of credit, I took out the amount, and I'm paying on that amount, I think it's less than $100 a month that I'm paying on that. So to me, I don't feel it. It was way worth the value. And that's just an easy way that I found to pay for it. So that's very, logical way, but that's what came through to me to pay for it. And that's how I did it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love like when you just get a solution that works for you,
like that. And I went, oh, I could do that. And, and also, money's money, hopefully I'll make it back up when I get more clients.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't care anymore.
Cool. Thanks, Wendy. And Lisa says here, and Lisa's offline, but maybe she'll listen to the recording. Does the certification include ideas on how to set up the infrastructure? Yes, it does. So we have a whole month-long course at the end that's all about the business. We have a community after certification that's all for the business, and even in the actual training we talk about setting up the basics. Michael.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Thank you so much for this. This was really, really helpful. There's something you said at the beginning that my mind kind of latched onto about addictions being a gift. And I kind of get it. I understand that, because if it weren't for, I feel like my own battles with alcohol really brought me into this conversation and into a deeper grounding.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, I have a sense of that, but I'm interested to know, but that can also sound really confrontational to somebody who's in it.
Yeah.
And also their family members who are in it, who if they're battling addiction and maybe they ruin their finances. Yeah, so I'm just thinking that, yes, I agree, but how do you communicate that to people that are really, it's almost like I can see that in hindsight now.
Yeah.
That addiction can be a gift. I guess I'm interested to know how you communicate that to people that are still in the throes of a habit or an addiction.
Yeah, it's a great question. And two things come to mind. I mean, one, and maybe these are the same thing, but just the possibility. So if I were talking with someone and maybe I am here, but I feel like I'm talking to a group, right? So if I'm with someone who's in the throes of it, and I think you know this from being around this work too, it would be like what is there a possibility that there's something in this, and fully, owning that this feels horrible. And this feels like the worst thing that's ever happened to you. We all know what that, we all know when bad things happen, it feels like the worst thing that ever happened. And our mind will want to argue that and say, no, it ruined my relationship and it ruined my finances, it ruined my health. And for sure. So it's like, I think those of us with some sense of this, some grounding, we hold that ground and we stand in that ground, knowing that their mind is going to do that, knowing that that is only their mind doing that. And then we kind of like, I have this image of just being really planted, like almost having your shoes in like wet cement. And then we just kind of lean in a little bit and like, could it be, I could have asked you in the middle of your addiction, could it be that even though this feels like your world is falling apart, could it be that that's only what your mind is telling you and that your world is actually opening up? Now, you might have punched me in the face. You might have said, get out of here. I don't want to talk. Who knows? But we can be grounded. And I think it's what Wendy said and what others, it's like when we have our deep grounding in that, people feel it. Mm-hmm. And they still might argue. They still might say, no, you're crazy. This is horrible. But something sticks with them. If we say it, and again, we're not pushing it. We're just proposing it from our grounding. I think that's how a lot of shifts happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
the difference between kind of saying it in a way that might be confrontational.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of it is just, and you do this when you talk with people, like we just get quiet and we get that kind of connection and we just feel kind of how far we can go. And we're wrong sometimes. Sometimes we do say things that don't land or that are confrontational. And even those can be the best. So I have said things many times in a coaching session where the person's like, no, that's too far. There's no way, this is a gift or whatever it might be. And then I just, okay, I'm sorry. And you don't have to believe that. And it's fine. And let's talk about something else. And then a week later, they say, that thing you mentioned where I got mad at, so we don't know how it's going to go. And I think there's something to be said in pushing the envelope, but with love and without forcing them, that is really actually kind of where that power is. Cool. Thank you. Jen's asking if you stay connected in the community post-training. Yes, we have an awesome community, ongoing community, where we practice coaching forever. We coach with feedback, and then we also work on our businesses together. It's an optional community, but many people are in it, and it's really supportive. And even for people who aren't in the community, all change coaches, I do quarterly calls. You are on our directory. There's all kinds of community. There's a community you kind of can't get away from, the one where you're just invited to the quarterly calls, and we kind of are at that level. And then there's deeper levels of community available for as much as you want to hang out. Yeah, Enrique says, staying in the conversation is the recipe for me. I went through the guided Little School Big Change twice and 3 times on my own, and the insights are truly life-changing. That's awesome. I agree. Like there's something about the repetition, and I kind of hate to use that word because it's not just rote repetition. It's not like you just fall asleep with the stuff in your head and it's going to get in, but there is something about just, I tried that many times. I used to sleep with things in my head all the time. But there's something about just really really being in this and seeing it over and over. And then your mind goes off into its old conditioning. And then you get kind of pulled back here. And again, all the best way I can think to describe it is it's like the scales just kind of shift. You know, you go from feeling like really just sort of living in our heads with moments of peace and moments of grounding that we want more of, to feeling mostly grounded with moments of chaos. And even those moments of chaos are like, yeah, it's chaos. It happens. So that really, really can shift. And that's super important, I think, for people to kind of open to, you know, and just see that that's a possibility. Jen says, does anyone else feel a sense of peace when exposed to this way of understanding? I hope so. That's why we're doing it. It really is. No, I love what you're saying, Jen. Even when my mind is chattering, saying, how does this work? Blah, blah, blah. There's a peace. And that is so true. That is you. That is that peace that finally that is being spoken to, and it feels it and it responds. And this is where, and this is for anything in life, like our mind will want to know the hows and again, what could go wrong and why, and how does she know? And all of that stuff, that is just a mind doing its due diligence. It's just like really good. It's really, really good researcher, attorney, whatever the heck it is. It plays all those roles, right? And it just wants to know everything with sound logic. And that's another thing, is I think we start to feel that peace that you're feeling when you listen to this, Jen. And that's like, oh, that's kind of home. That's my calling. That's something. And then when all the noise happens, which will probably happen your whole life, it just looks more like the noise. But that comes, I think, from feeling grounded in the peace and from being open to the noise, because I think that's a huge a thing that happens is we start thinking, oh, it's just thought, it's just noise. And innocently that we start to dismiss it and push it away and bypass it and all of that. And this is not about bypassing. There's nothing helpful about taking a chunk of life and saying, no, I don't need you. You're just whatever. You're just thought. You're just feeling. I know I wrote a book called Just a Thought, but I don't mean it that way. Like it's embracing all of it that moves us through this, not picking and choosing. Wendy.
So I just wanted to mention with that for 5 years, I hadn't had a panic attack. And then last month I had two days in a row. And it was because of a health thing that came up and scared me. And then I watched myself go back to peace, which never had happened before. I would have a panic attack and then grab onto that and be in anxiety perpetually, indefinitely. And this time I knew it's a panic attack. It's okay. It's safe. It's going to go back to peace. And it within, 20 minutes, it did.
Yeah.
And the next day something came up again, and here we go again, and back to peace again. So that had never happened before. And so I'm glad, actually, thank you for the panic attack, because I got to see that it does work that way. And before I didn't know that. Before I thought there's something really wrong here.
It's so huge. I love that. And our conditioning would have us think, oh my gosh, well, Wendy's been on this big deepening. She's been seeing so much over the past year. Why is she suddenly having a panic attack? But none of that is coming out of your mouth. You're like, yeah, I had a panic attack and thank you. And it took me deeper into what I know is true. And that is exactly what's possible for us. That's
my mother actually said to me, like, at one other point, she's like, why are you getting so upset? You've been through the coaching, pick up your book and look at it. And I went, what? And I said, doesn't mean I'm not human anymore. It just means that I can understand that I'm going to go back to peace when this is over. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So I had to do some explaining there.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. Well, I just want to invite, I love some of the conversation here in the chat, and for anyone who is, I see some questions of people that just are wanting to maybe do the coaching or thinking about it or don't see how it's going to happen, whether it's around that, whether it's around the school, whether it's around just anything that I've shared here content wise. I'm happy to talk with anyone. So if you are on the fence about any of this, or if you can just reach out to me anytime. I am right now actively having a lot of conversations with people specifically around that coach training, because it starts in a little over a month. But again, email, reach out, reply to the email where we're going to send shortly that has this recording in it, and I'll get back to you. My team will get back to you, and we'll talk more. But I really appreciate you guys listening. And I just, again, it goes to what we're talking about here. This is so helpful for me too. That's why I love doing this work. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. It feels so good to just point in this direction and to see people kind of lighting up and starting to see it. And some people really seeing it. It's the most like selfish and rewarding and best thing that we can do for ourselves. And it really is the best thing you can do for the people around you. So thanks for hanging out here for an hour and a half and listening. And hopefully I'll hear from you guys soon. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.